Imagine you are a scientist in the year 1799. You have spent your entire career studying the natural world, cataloging birds, mammals, reptiles, and you believe, with full confidence, that you understand how life is organized on this planet. Then someone hands you a small, flat specimen collected from the other side of the world, and everything you thought you knew falls apart. This animal has the bill of a duck, the tail of a beaver, the body of an otter, and it lays eggs like a reptile, yet nurses its young with milk like a mammal. When the first preserved specimen arrived in Britain, the naturalist George Shaw was so convinced it was a hoax, he took scissors to the skin, searching for the stitches where someone had sewn the bill onto the body. There were no stitches. This creature is real. It is called the platypus, Ornithorhynchus anatinus, and it lives right here, tucked inside the cold mountain streams and quiet river bends of eastern Australia. And today, we are going into its world. No zoos, no tanks, just the wild, unfiltered truth of one of the most extraordinary animals that has ever walked, or rather swum, on this planet. Stay with us. This is going to change the way you see the natural world forever. Before we follow the platypus through its day, we need to go back, way back, about 166 million years. Because the platypus is not just an unusual animal, it is a living time capsule, a creature that has barely changed since the age of dinosaurs. When the supercontinent Gondwana began to break apart, Australia drifted away from the rest of the world slowly, over tens of millions of years. And in that isolation, evolution took a different path here. Wild placental mammals, the group that includes humans, dogs, whales, and horses, came to dominate most of the world. Australia kept something older, the monotremes, the only mammals on Earth that still lay eggs. There are only 5 species of monotreme alive today, 3 species of echidna, and 1 platypus. The platypus lineage is so ancient, so distinct, that when scientists finally sequenced its genome in 2008, they discovered it contains genetic elements for mammals, reptiles, and birds, all stitched together in one improbable body. It has 10 sex chromosomes. Humans have 2. The platypus has 10. It produces venom, which we'll get to later, and uses a sensory system so advanced it puts most modern technology to shame. It is, in every measurable sense, one of the most evolutionarily successful animals that has ever lived. And yet, most people couldn't tell you where it sleeps. The platypus lives in a very specific slice of eastern Australia, from Queensland in the north, down through New South Wales, Victoria, and into Tasmania in the south. It needs clean, cold-flowing fresh water. It needs banks soft enough to dig into and deep enough to hide in. It needs rivers undisturbed by too much human noise. That's getting harder to find. But in the places where it still thrives, in the cool mountain streams of the snowy mountains, the shaded creeks of Tasmania, the tea-colored rivers of Queensland, the platypus is as wild and alive as it has ever been. This is its kingdom, and we've barely scratched the surface of what happens here. Before we dive deeper, literally, into the platypus's world, if you're finding this as fascinating as I am, consider hitting that subscribe button. We put out deeply researched wildlife content like this every week. No fluff, just the real wild world. Now, let's get wet. It is 5:47 in the morning in the Brindabella Range, west of Canberra. The river is barely visible through the mist, and somewhere beneath the surface, somewhere we cannot yet see, A platypus is waking up. She, and we know this individual is female by the absence of the ankle spur we'll discuss later, has spent the last few hours resting in a burrow dug deep into the riverbank. A burrow that can extend up to 30 feet into the earth. The burrow is more than just a bed. It's an engineering marvel. The entrance is always below the waterline, a clever defense against land predators. The tunnel twists and climbs upward, so the nest chamber stays dry even when the river rises. Some burrows have multiple entrances, escape routes, just in case. The nesting chamber at the end is lined with wet leaves and grass. The platypus doesn't just drop them in. She carries them tucked under her tail, using it like a basket, pressing the vegetation against her body as she moves through the tunnel. That detail alone tells you something important. This animal thinks about its home. She surfaces just after 6 a.m. For a moment, she floats perfectly still. That dense, sleek body sitting low in the water, the broad flat tail barely moving, those webbed 4 feet tucked against her sides. She is reading the world. That bill is not just for show. Beneath its rubbery surface lies a sensory system that has no equivalent anywhere in the mammal world. 40,000 electroreceptors, cells, capable of detecting the faint electrical fields generated by the muscle contractions of other living animals. She doesn't need to see her prey. She doesn't need to smell it. She can feel the electricity of a shrimp's heartbeat from 15 centimeters away. But we'll get to the hunt in the next segment. Right now, she has a river to navigate. Underwater, the platypus is transformed. On land, she is a waddling, almost comical figure, moving with a lizard-like splay of limbs that seems entirely wrong for a mammal. But in the water, everything snaps into place. She uses her large, webbed front feet to propel herself. Not like a dog paddling, not like a frog kicking, but with a powerful rowing motion. The front flippers doing the work, while the hind feet trail behind as rudders. The flat tail acts as a stabilizer. She is effortless, fast, precise. She can hold her breath for around 2 minutes on a single dive, though most foraging dives last only 30 to 40 seconds. In a single day, she might swim up to 11 kilometers and consume up to 20% of her own body weight in food. That is an extraordinary metabolic demand, and it shapes everything about her life. Her territory is a stretch of river, perhaps 2 to 3 kilometers long. She knows every rock, every submerged log, every undercut bank where crayfish hide. She patrols it systematically, not randomly, but with the quiet confidence of an animal that has done this 10,000 times before. This river is not just her habitat, it is her entire world. The river world of the platypus is extraordinary, but it's also deeply fragile. We'll be talking about the threats facing this species later in the film. If you want to support independent wildlife content that actually goes beyond the surface and helps bring stories like this to people who would never otherwise see them, sharing this video with just one friend genuinely makes a difference. Okay, let's go hunting. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you could feel electricity, not in the dangerous jolting sense, but subtly, gently, the way some people claim to feel a thunderstorm approaching in their bones. Now imagine that sensitivity amplified 10,000 times until you could detect the electrical pulse of a heartbeat through water, through mud, through darkness. That is what it is like to be a platypus. The platypus hunts entirely with its eyes closed. When it dives, a fold of skin covers both the eyes and the ears. It is essentially blind and deaf underwater. There is no sense of smell possible through water either. It has only the bill, and the bill is extraordinary. Along the upper surface, roughly 40,000 electroreceptors are packed in rows. More electroreceptors per square centimeter than any other known mammal on Earth. On the underside, around 60,000 mechanoreceptors detect water pressure changes, the tiny disturbances created when a shrimp twitches or a water beetle kicks. The platypus integrates these two streams of information in real time, triangulating the source of the electrical signal, calculating the exact direction and distance of prey, and striking with terrifying precision. She works the riverbed methodically. Her bill moves in sweeping arcs, left, right, left, like a metal detector passing over a beach. The moment the electroreceptors fire, the moment that telltale electrical signature registers, she drives the bill down into the mud. What she brings up? A freshwater shrimp, small, translucent, still twitching. It goes directly into her cheek pouches. She has no stomach in the traditional sense, where small grinding plates will break it down. She has no teeth, just hard keratinous ridges that work like millstones. In a single foraging session, she might make hundreds of dives. The prey list is impressive in its variety. Freshwater shrimp and prawns, yabbies, Australian freshwater crayfish, up to 15 centimeters long, insect larvae, mayflies, caddis, flies, stoneflies, worms, small fish, freshwater snails, occasionally small frogs. Each item is held in the cheek pouches until she surfaces. Then she grinds, chews, and swallows, floating at the surface for a few seconds before diving again. It is patient, methodical, relentless work. The hunting is most intense at dawn and dusk, the crepuscular hours when aquatic invertebrates are most active, moving around the riverbed rather than hiding still in the sediment. But a hungry platypus will hunt at any hour. And in colder months, when the river runs low on invertebrates, she must work harder, range further, dive deeper. The electroreception system gives her an edge that no other mammal in Australia has. But it is not infallible. Heavily silted rivers, muddied by agricultural runoff, disturbed by erosion, scatter the electrical signals. The platypus cannot hunt as effectively. It may starve. This is one of the quiet, invisible consequences of land clearing in eastern Australia. Not a dramatic collapse, but a slow erosion of the conditions that make the platypus's extraordinary biology work. For now, though, this river is clean. The signals are clear. And she dives again. If the science here is blowing your mind, it should. We've linked some incredible peer-reviewed research on platypus electroreception in the description below. Everything in this film is sourced and cited. We believe wildlife documentaries should be as rigorous as they are beautiful. If you agree, leave a comment below. It genuinely helps this video reach more people. Now, let's talk about the other extraordinary thing the platypus hides. It's venom. It is late winter in southeastern Australia. The river is still cold, close to 10 degrees Celsius, the kind of cold that makes your fingers ache. But beneath the surface, something is shifting. The platypus mating season has begun. The platypus is largely solitary. For most of the year, males and females occupy overlapping but separate territories, avoiding each other with a kind of polite indifference. But for a few weeks each year, between June and October, that changes. The male's strategy is not subtle. He is larger than the female, sometimes 20 to 30% heavier. And as the season begins, he becomes conspicuously, sometimes aggressively present. Here is something most people don't know about the male platypus. He carries venom. On the inner side of each hind ankle sits a hollow keratinous spur, connected by a duct to a crural gland in the thigh that produces a complex venom during the breeding season. This venom is not for hunting. The platypus cannot inject it into prey. The spurs face the wrong direction entirely for that. It is a weapon designed specifically for combat, with other males. The venom is extraordinary in its complexity. It contains over 80 distinct compounds, some unique to the platypus, found nowhere else in nature. It is not lethal to humans, but it causes immediate, intense, debilitating pain. A burning, swelling agony in the affected limb that can persist for weeks or even months, and which is notably resistant to standard pain relief. Accounts from researchers and farmers who have been envenomated describe it as among the worst pain they have ever experienced, comparable in intensity to repeated bee stings concentrated into a single point, but lasting vastly longer. For a rival male platypus, it can be crippling. Competition between males is fierce during mating season. Males will range far beyond their normal territories, sometimes 3 to 7 times their usual range, searching for females and challenging any rival they encounter. The fights involve grappling in the water, each trying to drive the ankle spurs into the flank or limb of the other. The winner breeds. The loser retreats, wounded to recover. The female is not passive in this process. She observes, she selects. The courtship ritual, when it finally occurs between a chosen pair, is one of the strangest and most beautiful behaviors in the mammal world. The male swims close to the female and grasps her tail in his bill. And then the pair begin to swim in slow, synchronized circles. Around and around, a quiet underwater ballet that can last for hours. Scientists believe this synchronized circling allows the female to assess the male, his strength, his stamina, his coordination. She will mate with multiple males. Her offspring may have different fathers. And then, quietly, without ceremony, they separate. The male will have nothing further to do with the offspring. He does not build a nest. He does not protect a territory for a family. He does not feed young. His role in the evolution of this ancient lineage is complete. The rest, all the extraordinary work that comes next, belongs to the female alone. What she does next is genuinely one of the most remarkable things any mammal on Earth does. We're talking about a process so unusual that scientists debated for decades whether it was even possible. Before we go there, if you've been watching this long, you're clearly our kind of person. The kind who actually wants to understand the natural world, not just scroll past it. Subscribe if you haven't. Seriously, it keeps us making films like this. Coming up, The Secret Nursery. She has been preparing for weeks. The nesting burrow she has chosen, dug specifically for this purpose, distinct from her resting burrows, extends deeper into the bank than any of her other tunnels, up to 6 meters long, with a gentle upward slope to keep the chamber dry. She has lined the chamber with wet leaves and grass, collected laboriously over many trips, carried as always under her tail. Now she seals the entrance. From the outside, there is nothing here, just a riverbank, just dirt, just roots. But inside, in a chamber no bigger than a dinner plate, she is about to do something no other mammal in the world does not in the same way, not with the same stakes. She is going to lay eggs. The eggs are tiny, about 11 millimeters in diameter, soft, leathery, like reptile eggs rather than the hard-shelled eggs of birds. She lays between 1 and 3, most commonly 2. She curls her body around them, using her tail to hold them against her belly, keeping them warm in the cool, dark earth. She will not leave the burrow now for up to 2 weeks. She has eaten heavily in the weeks before, building up fat reserves. But those reserves are finite. She is burning through them, lying still, keeping the eggs warm, waiting. In the wild, this is the most dangerous time. She cannot hunt. She cannot monitor her territory. She is hidden, quiet and entirely focused on the eggs pressed against her belly. After approximately 10 days, the eggs hatch. The hatchlings are called Puggles. They are the size of a jelly bean. They are blind. They are hairless. They have a small egg tooth, a tiny spike on the snout used to break through the shell. That will fall away within hours. They are, by any measure, completely and utterly helpless. And here is where the platypus's biology does something truly extraordinary. The mother has no nipples. This is not an oversight of evolution. It is an ancient design. Instead, she secretes milk through patches of specialized skin on her abdomen. The milk simply oozes through the skin and pools in small grooves, where the Puggles lap it up. The milk itself is exceptional. It contains a vast array of proteins, some of them with powerful antibacterial properties, capable of killing bacteria resistant to conventional antibiotics. Scientists are actively studying platypus milk as a potential source of new antibiotics. The mother's milk changes composition week by week, adjusting its fat, protein, and sugar content to match the growing Puggles' needs. It is a system of profound biological intelligence, refined over 166 million years. The Puggles grow rapidly. At 4 months, they are fully furred. At around 4 to 5 months, the mother begins to leave the burrow for short foraging trips. The first time she is hunted in months. She is lean, tired, and hungry. But the Puggles are almost ready. Their first swim is hesitant. They paddle in the shallows. And then, as if remembering something carried in their very genes from millions of years ago, they know the water. They dive, they surface, they dive again. Within weeks, they are hunting. Within months, they are indistinguishable from the adults. Same bill, same tail, same sleek fur, same quiet mastery of the river. A new generation of an ancient lineage. The river receives them without ceremony. If you've made it this far into the film, I want to say something genuine. Thank you. Making content like this, with real research, real time in the field, real care, takes a lot. And the only reason we can keep doing it is because people like you watch, share, and subscribe. If this film has taught you something new today, consider leaving a comment about what surprised you most. The platypus milk antibiotic story, for me, is the one that never stops being incredible. Let's keep going, because the story of the platypus gets darker before it gets hopeful. The platypus has survived for 166 million years. It has outlasted the dinosaurs. It has outlasted ice ages. It has survived the collision of continents and the shifting of climates that would have erased most species from the planet. But survival is never passive. It is negotiated every day in the margins between predator and prey, between caution and the desperate need to eat. In the Australian bush, the platypus faces a surprisingly varied list of predators. In the water, large freshwater eels can take juveniles. Water pythons will ambush adults near the bank. In northern Queensland, freshwater crocodiles represent an additional threat. On land, when the platypus must occasionally cross between water bodies or haul itself out to rest or nest, it becomes vulnerable to a different set of hunters. Raptors take juveniles. Owls, particularly the powerful owl, will hunt young platypuses that venture too close to the surface at night. Foxes, introduced to Australia by European settlers in the 19th century, have become one of the most significant land-based threats. The fox is not a native predator to Australia. The platypus has had no millennia of coevolution to sharpen its defenses against it. Dogs, both domestic dogs that escape into river corridors and feral dogs in remote areas, are a significant killer of platypuses caught on land. The platypus's defense is primarily avoidance. It is alert at the surface. It dives at the smallest disturbance. Its dark brown dorsal fur and pale belly, countershading, makes it hard to see from above and below simultaneously. The burrow is a last resort, a sealed, hidden underground refuge that most land predators cannot access. But there is a growing category of threat that no amount of vigilance can counter. The platypus is what ecologists call an indicator species. Its presence in a river system tells you the river is healthy. Its absence tells you something has gone wrong. And increasingly, across the rivers of Eastern Australia, the platypus is going quiet. Dams and weirs fragment river systems. The platypus cannot easily move over or around them. Populations become isolated, unable to find new mates, unable to recolonize areas where they've been lost. Agricultural runoff, particularly the erosion of stream banks when vegetation is cleared, silts up the rivers. The electroreception system that makes the platypus such an extraordinary hunter becomes useless in cloudy water. Platypuses in heavily silted rivers are documented to be significantly thinner. They simply cannot find enough food. And then there is climate change. Eastern Australia is experiencing more frequent, more severe droughts. Rivers that once ran year-round now dry up for months at a time. In 2019 to 2020, during Australia's catastrophic Black Summer bushfires, the worst in recorded history, the rivers of Eastern Australia were simultaneously at record low flows due to drought. Scientists estimate that platypus populations in some affected catchments declined by 40 to 50% in a single year. A species that survived 166 million years, almost extinguished in 12 months by the intersection of drought and fire. They came back, slowly. Some populations are recovering, but the trajectory is concerning. A 2020 study published in the journal Biological Conservation modeled platypus populations under climate change scenarios and reached a sobering conclusion. Without active intervention, the platypus could be functionally extinct across much of its range within 50 years. Functionally extinct. Not gone from every river, but present in such small, fragmented, isolated populations that the species would be effectively unable to maintain itself. That is the precipice this ancient creature stands on. What you've just heard is not alarmism. It is the peer-reviewed scientific consensus. And here's what I believe. The most powerful thing any individual can do is simply know about this. Share this video. Tell someone. The platypus doesn't have a PR team. It doesn't have a celebrity spokesperson. It has rivers, and the people who care about rivers. That's it. Coming up in the final segments, the scientists, the citizen volunteers, and the extraordinary conservation efforts fighting to keep the platypus in Australian rivers forever. But this is not a story of despair, because across Australia right now, thousands of people are fighting for the platypus with a passion that borders on the personal. At the Australian Platypus Conservancy, based in Victoria, scientists have been monitoring platypus populations for over 30 years. They track individuals, they map movements, they identify critical habitat. They work with landowners to restore riverbanks, revegetate eroded banks, and remove feral predators. They have also developed a population monitoring technique that requires no trapping at all. Environmental DNA or eDNA. Every living creature sheds DNA into its environment through skin cells, saliva, waste. By collecting a liter of river water and filtering it, scientists can detect the presence of platypuses from their shed DNA without disturbing a single animal. It is elegant, it is cheap, it is scalable, And it is allowing, for the first time, a national scale picture of where platypuses actually are and where they are missing. The results are sobering in some places. In others, they are encouraging. In river catchments, where communities have invested in riparian revegetation, planting trees and shrubs along the banks, reducing erosion, improving water quality, platypus populations are recovering. In Tasmania, where development pressure has historically been lower and many river systems remain in relatively good condition, platypus populations are among the healthiest in the country. In Victoria, dedicated conservation corridors, connecting fragmented river systems through strategic revegetation and wildlife underpasses beneath roads, are allowing platypuses to move between previously isolated areas. And then there is the citizen science movement, the Platypus Spotters Program, which coordinates community monitoring across New South Wales, has enrolled thousands of ordinary Australians in systematically recording platypus sightings. Farmers, teachers, school children, retirees walking their dogs along riverbanks. This kind of distributed monitoring provides something no team of professional scientists could generate alone: a comprehensive nationwide data set, updated continuously, that reveals population trends in real time. Some of the most important platypus records in Australia have come not from scientists, but from alert, caring members of the public who simply paid attention. There is something profound in that. The platypus does not know it is threatened. It does not know about droughts, or climate models, or conservation legislation. It knows the river. It knows the cold, clean water moving against its bill. It knows the electric signature of a shrimp 2 centimeters beneath the sediment. It knows the burrow carved into the bank, where it will sleep through the heat of the day. It knows everything it has known for 166 million years. Our job, the extraordinary, humbling, necessary job of our generation, is to ensure that the rivers where it does that work still exist. Not just for the platypus, but for what the platypus tells us about the state of the world we've inherited and the world we will leave behind. The organizations we've mentioned in this segment are linked in the description below: the Australian Platypus Conservancy, the eDNA monitoring programs, the Platypus Spotters Citizen Science Initiative. If this film has moved you, please consider supporting even one of them. Even $5 is a GPS tag. Even $20 is a riparian planting. And wherever in the world you are, the US, the UK, Australia, your rivers need the same attention. Know your local waterways. Support your local conservation groups. The platypus is a call to action disguised as an absurd, impossible, wonderful animal. Don't ignore the call. It is evening now. The river has shifted color, from the bright silver blue of morning to the deep bronze and rose of sunset. She surfaces slowly, as she always does, nose first, then the broad dark back, then the flat tail resting on the water. She floats for a moment, just floating. In the course of this one day, this single ordinary day in an Australian river, she has dived several hundred times. She has consumed roughly her body weight in invertebrates. She has patrolled her territory, avoided a fox on the bank in the pre-dawn, navigated around a snag where an eel lives that she has learned to avoid. She has done all of this alone, quietly, without witness, until today. There is a particular kind of wonder that comes from learning about an animal and realizing that it asks nothing of you. The platypus doesn't need your awe. It doesn't perform for the camera. It doesn't have a relationship with the concept of being observed. It simply is, swimming its rivers, hunting its prey, raising its young in sealed underground chambers, carrying its ancient DNA through one more season, one more year, one more generation. The wonder is entirely yours, but the responsibility is ours too. We are the only species on this planet capable of understanding what the platypus is, of reading its genome, of modeling its population trends, of choosing to let it survive or choosing, through inaction, to watch it disappear. That is both a gift and an obligation. The platypus has survived 5 mass extinction events. It has survived the breakup of supercontinents. It has survived the rise and fall of every dominant species that has preceded us. The only question that remains, the only uncertainty that matters, is whether it can survive us. And that, unlike the platypus's genome, or its electroreception, or its leathery eggs, is entirely within our power to determine. Thank you for spending this time in the world of the platypus. We'll see you in the next film. If you've reached the end of this film, genuinely thank you. Not everyone has the patience or the curiosity to sit with a subject this deeply. You do. That matters. If you want more content like this, in-depth, research-backed wildlife documentaries that don't talk down to you, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Our next film is already in production, and in the meantime, the full list of sources, research papers, conservation links, and further reading is in the description. Everything in this film is real, cited, and verifiable, because the wild world is extraordinary enough without embellishment. We'll see you next time.